The galaxy had grown comfortable with the idea that humans were harmless. After 107 years of peace, after trade treaties and cultural broadcasts, and those embarrassingly earnest Earth tourism commercials that played before every interstellar summit, most species had allowed themselves to forget what humanity used to be. Peace breeds amnesia far quicker than war ever could. So when the Galactic Broadcast Network opened its morning segment with cheerful commentary about rising diplomatic stability, no one expected the screen to be torn apart by light. The reporter's voice had been mid-sentence, something about a record-high peace index, when the image cut to a shaky orbital feed. A single Imperial cruiser, matte black and moving with predator stillness, hovered above the human colony of New Denver. A medical facility sat below, domes of white and silver, surrounded by gardens planted by schoolchildren. A place full of quiet beeping machines, sighing vents, and soft lullabies piped into the neonatal units. A place of recovery. A place of hope. Then the cruiser fired. It wasn't theatrical. No build-up. No warning sirens. Just a beam of compressed violet light bursting downward with the precision of a knife stroke. The hospital didn't explode, it dissolved. One moment it existed. The next it was gone, replaced by a rising plume of ionized dust that spread like a long gray sigh across the colony horizon. Somewhere in that dust were patients who had been sleeping moments before. Somewhere in it were nurses who had been adjusting blankets. Somewhere in it were children. The broadcast cut off. The galaxy went still. And humanity did something much worse than scream. They went silent. Silence from humans was not part of anyone's diplomatic playbook. The Empire's council chambers waited for shouting, threats, a barrage of ultimatums. They got none. Earth issued no immediate statement. No furious speeches. No military movements detected leaving Seoul. No chatter through diplomatic lines. Nothing but a stillness so complete that even the war-hardened Vorthax generals felt a cold prickle along their spines. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit room deep beneath the United Earth headquarters in Geneva, General Evelyn Grant sat alone. Her uniform jacket lay folded beside her. She had always hated how stiff the thing felt across her shoulders. She preferred the soft cotton undershirt she wore now, sleeves pushed to her elbows, fingers wrapped around a soothing cup of something herbal. Anyone walking in might have mistaken her for a schoolteacher working late. But her eyes were not soft. They were the steel gray of a storm about to break. She replayed the footage again. Slowly. Carefully. A trained tactician understands that to react too quickly is to react emotionally, and emotion clouds precision. Still, her hand tightened around the ceramic mug as she watched the violet beam descend. She didn't blink as the hospital vanished. She simply inhaled, long, slow, controlled, and whispered something into the empty room. My nephew was in there. A polite knock sounded. The door slid open, revealing Lieutenant Arlo Jennings, young, nervous, trying to hide the tremor in his fingers. General, the council is waiting. Of course they are, she murmured. She placed her cup down gently, stood with that distinct earthborn calm that unnerved half the galaxy, and walked toward the door. As she passed Arlo, she gave him a warm, encouraging smile, the kind a mother might give a frightened kid before a dentist appointment. Breathe, sweetheart. We're going to handle this. The Galactic Security Council chamber buzzed with frantic multilingual chatter. Some species hissed. Some clicked. Some vibrated in arcs of bioluminescent light. Everyone smelled of fear. When Evelyn stepped inside, the room hushed with almost reverent dread. She bowed her head politely to each ambassador, greeting them with warmth. Thank you for gathering on such short notice, she said. Earth appreciates your concern. The Zavori ambassador, a thin reed-like creature with trembling antennae, leaned forward. General Grant, the Empire claims the attack was, how do humans say it? A disciplinary measure. Evelyn smiled the way one might smile at a toddler explaining taxes. Oh, honey, she said softly. That's not a phrase you ever want to use with us. Several ambassadors recoiled at her tone, not angry, but almost pitying. A polite pity. That frightened them more than any rage. The Empire will be joining us shortly, the Saracen elder announced, voice shamefully cautious. They claim it was a misunderstanding. Evelyn clasped her hands behind her back. Misunderstandings usually don't involve disintegrating pediatric oncology wards. But sure. We'll hear them out. A hologram flickered to life. Admiral Zorvak of the Empire, smug, scaled, and absolutely certain he held the upper claw. Humanity should consider restraint, he declared. War benefits no one. Evelyn lifted her brow with such polite disbelief that several ambassadors silently prayed for their own souls. Admiral, forgive my curiosity, why fire on a hospital? Zorvak shrugged, scales shimmering. Your colony allowed unauthorized refugees to land. It was a simple correction. Correction? Evelyn repeated, tasting the word like poison. Well, that's helpful to know. Her smile widened. Not kindly. Zorvak misread that. We advise humanity not to escalate. Your record demonstrates emotional fragility. You mourn too intensely. The entire council sucked in air. Evelyn didn't blink. Admiral, she said sweetly, thank you for your honesty. The Saracen elder whispered to the Zavori, when a human says thank you like that, run. But Zorvak didn't know human idioms. He strutted arrogantly as Evelyn nodded. We'll be in touch, she told him, then calmly ended the transmission. One ambassador, shaking badly, asked, General, what will Earth do? We'll be polite, she answered. We'll be patient. And then we'll respond accordingly. She turned to leave, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber like slow, deliberate drumbeats. Please rest tonight. Humanity will not start a war. But humanity would finish one. Late that evening, Evelyn stood at the window of the Geneva command tower, looking out over the dark lake. Her reflection stared back. Tired eyes, composed mouth, shoulders held in controlled precision. Her comm device buzzed with an encrypted alert. She tapped it. A single message appeared. Phase 1 complete. A coded phrase. Prepared years ago. Waiting for the moment when humanity would reawaken something they had tried very hard to bury. Evelyn exhaled a breath that trembled slightly, just slightly, before her posture returned to breathtaking calm. Thank you, she whispered to the agent on the other end, though the line had already closed. A quiet knock broke the silence. Arlo poked his head in. General? Colonists are gathering at the hospital site. They're asking what comes next. Evelyn nodded slowly. Of course they are. She walked past him, down the corridor, and out onto the rooftop overlooking the emergency transports assembling below. Engines hummed. Lights flickered. The night tasted metallic, thick with cold and sorrow. She looked toward the distant stars, the direction of the Empire, and for the first time since the attack, her smile vanished completely. Let them come, she whispered. Arlo swallowed. General, what should we tell the colony? She stepped closer, her voice barely above a breath. Tell them humanity remembers its children. As she turned away, the night sky shimmered with something faint and sharp, a streak of light carving briefly through the darkness. Until that moment, Arlo had hoped humans might still choose peace. But watching Evelyn Grant's expression as she stared into that star-painted void, he understood something far older, far deeper, something the galaxy had forgotten. Humans were quiet not because they feared war. They were quiet because war had already begun. The Imperial Hall of Concordance was designed to intimidate. Its obsidian pillars rose like sharpened teeth, curving inward as though ready to swallow any visitor foolish enough to walk beneath them. At the center of the chamber sat the Empire's High Military Committee, a collection of scaled, armored, or luminescent forms arranged in a crescent of authority. Every race present had conquered something. Every one of them believed they understood warfare. And not a single one understood the woman walking toward them. General Evelyn Grant moved like a breeze, quiet, composed, and disarmingly cordial. Her small transport shuttle had arrived without escorts, without military announcement, without the posturing every other species considered mandatory when crossing into enemy territory. She stepped into the chamber carrying only a slim datapad and a smile that seemed entirely out of place among those towering war-forged aliens. The guards bristled as she passed. Her calmness infuriated them. It felt wrong, like a knife disguised as a ribbon. "General Grant of Earth," boomed Admiral Urzet, a hulking four-armed reptilian whose metals clinked like chains. "We were not expecting such a casual entrance." Evelyn set a small container on the table and opened it. The scent of warm sugar drifted outward. "Chocolate chip cookies," she said sweetly. "Baked fresh. A little something from Earth to thank y'all for making time." Dozens of alien eyes blinked in collective confusion. Urzet stared as though she had offered him a live grenade. "You bring pastries to a formal interrogation?" "Oh, goodness, no," Evelyn replied with a light laugh. "This isn't an interrogation. Not yet." The room shifted. Several committee members exchanged nervous glances. The Saracen elder, whose crystalline tendrils dimmed whenever he sensed fear, dimmed nearly to black. Urzet leaned forward. "We are aware of the unfortunate incident on your colony. A regrettable misunderstanding." Evelyn clasped her hands gently, like a librarian preparing to teach story time. "Admiral, someone fired upon a hospital. A children's hospital. That's not something folks misunderstand." Her voice stayed soft, but every syllable landed like precise hammer strikes. "Earth would like the coordinates of the vessel responsible." A low ripple traveled across the chamber. "The Empire does not owe you details," growled General Thrall, a massive creature with tusks like daggers. "Your species is emotionally volatile. If we give you the name of the ship, you'll retaliate irrationally." Evelyn smiled politely, as though reassuring a misbehaving toddler. "General Thrall, if humanity wanted irrational retaliation, it would have arrived before dawn. I'm here because we prefer a civilized conversation." That should have calmed them. It didn't. The Saracen elder lowered his voice. "General Grant, please understand our concern. Your people form attachments quickly, deeply. When threatened, the human response is unpredictable." "What you call unpredictable," she said softly, "we call loyalty." Several committee members shifted uneasily. Loyalty for humans had always been dangerous. Loyalty to children, catastrophic. Admiral Urzet cleared his throat. "Humanity is too emotional. Too fragile. You mourn excessively. You attach too much importance to your small ones. These traits make you unstable negotiating partners." Evelyn tilted her head. "That's interesting, Admiral. We've always considered mourning a strength." Urzet scoffed. "Strength? Mourning consumes your species. Paralyzes it." Evelyn's smile sharpened by a single imperceptible degree. "No. It focuses us." The silence afterward was thick enough to plant crops in. She tapped her datapad, projecting an image of the destroyed hospital. The ash cloud hung over New Denver like a bruise in the sky. "This," she said quietly, "was a building full of patients undergoing treatment, including my nephew. He was 6. Even hardened warriors flinched. The human tendency to anchor grief in family ties was legendary and terrifying. Humans didn't grieve quietly. They grieved with purpose." General Thrall shifted in his seat. "We may reconsider sharing limited data." Evelyn nodded graciously. "That'd be lovely. Thank you." The way she thanked them sent shivers through creatures whose species had conquered continents. It was too calm. Too measured. Too polite. A soft chime sounded from her wrist device. She glanced at it, then tucked it away just as smoothly. "Apologies," she murmured. "Work message." "What message?" Urzet demanded. She smiled. "Phase 1 complete." The words meant nothing to the aliens, but something ancient in their evolutionary memory, something buried beneath layers of rational thought, suddenly clawed upward, whispering that they had just heard something very, very bad. The Saracen elder's glow dimmed fully. "General Grant, what is Phase 1? "Oh, just some Earth logistics," she said kindly. "You know humans, always preparing." "But your fleets remain in Seoul," Thrall argued. "No ships have moved." Evelyn blinked with polite innocence. "Do you believe everything your sensors tell you?" Several admirals stiffened. A faint clicking noise echoed through the chamber. a sign of alien panic too refined for human ears to normally detect. She took a cookie from the container and offered it to Urzit. "Try one. It'll settle your nerves." Urzit recoiled violently. "What does that mean?" "Nothing sinister, sweetheart," she said warmly. "Humans just like to comfort folks." "Comfort us with baked goods?" he asked, horrified. "Of course. Makes hard conversations easier." She paused, then added gently, "Especially ones where people admit guilt." The shift in the room was instantaneous. Half the committee went still. The other half leaned away as though she had become radioactive. Thrall snarled, "We admit nothing." Evelyn placed the cookie down. "That's unfortunate. Because someone in your chain of command chose to fire on children." Her voice remained painfully polite. "And the thing about humans is, we do not lose our children peacefully." Alien throats tightened. Even species without throats replicated the gesture instinctively. Urzit tried for arrogance, but it cracked. "You cannot threaten us in our own hall." She raised a brow. "I haven't threatened anyone." Then, after a brief thoughtful pause, "Not yet." Every creature in the room understood that humans rarely used the word yet unless they had a plan. And humans always had a plan. She straightened her datapad. "Let me be absolutely clear. Earth doesn't want a war. We've enjoyed our peace. We've grown gardens, built libraries, hosted cooking competitions. We even sent y'all those adorable cat videos, Earth's greatest diplomatic tool." A few aliens glanced at each other. Yes, humans were strangely proud of their feline ambassadors. But if the Empire wants war... She let the sentence trail off. The Saracen elder whispered, "She will finish it." Evelyn smiled. Polite, motherly, devastating. "Thank you all for your time. I'll be in touch once you've gathered the coordinates." She turned, walking with the collected calm of someone leaving a Sunday church service, not an enemy war council. Guards stepped aside instinctively. No one wanted to brush against her. No one wanted to risk drawing her eyes. At the chamber doors, an anxious young alien soldier blurted, "General, what happens if we don't provide the coordinates?" Evelyn paused, turned, offered a gentle tilt of her head. "Then," she said softly, "I'll have to come back and ask again." And her smile, sweet, gracious, and unbearably calm, rippled through the chamber like the first crack spreading across ice before the lake breaks. Because every species present understood one terrible truth: humans never asked twice. Panic began not with explosions or alarms but with a glitch, one tiny flicker across the Imperial defense grid that lasted less than a heartbeat. A single sensor blinked off, then on again. No one noticed. The Empire had grown arrogant, confident in its impenetrable borders. Their mistake was assuming humans would announce themselves. The second flicker came 6 minutes later. A string of outer system satellites lost contact for 3 full seconds, before reconnecting as though nothing had happened. That time, someone noticed. By the time the third wave of glitches rippled across an entire star quadrant, the Imperial Command Center erupted into frantic motion. Screens flashed warnings in a dozen languages, technicians shouted over one another, and the air filled with the sharp tang of overheating circuitry. "Unknown signatures detected," barked Admiral Urzit, tail lashing. "Identify intruders." A terrified officer tried to steady his trembling claws. "Sir, the signatures, they're human." "That's impossible," Urzit snapped. "Human fleets remain in Sol." The officer swallowed hard. "Then, sir, something else is happening." Across the command deck, a large hologram flickered to life, projecting a map of the Empire's outer territories. One by one, red dots appeared, slowly at first, then multiplying chaotically, swarming like sparks from a wildfire. General Thrall stared in disbelief. "How many vessels?" The officer's voice cracked. "All of them." Silence slammed into the room. Every human ship they knew of, every dreadnought, every stealth corvette, every medical cruiser, every carrier, had just appeared deep inside Imperial space as if teleported there by some ancient god. Impossible. Terrifying. Silent. How did they get past our borders? Another technician squealed. Borders? Urzet hissed. They didn't cross borders. They materialized. The hologram zoomed in on one of the new red clusters. It showed a human fleet drifting above the Empire's mining colony on Varkos 9. Their formation was perfect, too perfect, like a set of blades arranged neatly on a velvet cloth. Then every human ship broadcast the same message in a pleasant, cheerful Earth voice. Kind reminder. Please evacuate your military personnel. Thank you. The Empire froze. Human politeness had never sounded more like a death sentence. On the other side of space, aboard the UNS Resolute, General Evelyn Grant watched the unfolding chaos with the same gentle expression she wore during PDA meetings. She had traded her cotton undershirt for her formal Navy uniform again. Not because she needed the authority, but because she knew the Empire was watching. Arlo stood beside her, pale as moonlight. General, they're panicking. That's the idea. But we didn't fire a single shot. She smiled softly. Humans don't always need bullets, Lieutenant. Sometimes the threat of disappointment works just fine. Arlo stared at her, uncertain whether she was joking. With Evelyn, the line between humor and strategy was always razor-thin. Down below, the comm station lit up with frantic Imperial transmissions. One officer from Varkos 9 screamed. They're just waiting. Not moving, just staring at us. Evelyn leaned closer to the monitor, studying the alien's fearful face. That's called patience, she murmured, mostly to herself. Another transmission played. A high-pitched wail from a cruiser near the Clyrex Nebula. They boarded us. Humans are on the ship. Thrall's voice thundered in response. Fight them. The alien on-screen sobbed. They're smiling. Evelyn turned to Arlo. Tell the boarding teams to stop scaring the poor fellas. They're not doing anything except humming, Arlo said weakly. And that's enough, Evelyn replied. The Empire scrambled to coordinate. Fleets mobilized, planetary shields rose, and emergency orders spread like wildfire. But every move they made was 3 steps behind. A deep crimson hue washed across the command center as yet another alert sounded. Admiral! A technician cried. Human vessels are ignoring our weapons locks. Fire! Urzet roared. But when the Empire fired their first volley, the shots passed through the nearest human ship like water through smoke. Hologram. Illusion. Deception. The real human fleet uncloaked behind them, silent, shimmering like predators rising from tall grass. The comms erupted with screams. Evelyn tapped the console with a thoughtful hum. Beautiful execution, she said. Our engineers outdid themselves. Arlo swallowed. General, this is going to terrify the entire galaxy. That's all right, she replied. Sometimes fear clarifies. Back in the Empire's capital, the military committee devolved into chaos. The Saracen elder dimmed so drastically, he was nearly transparent. This cannot be happening, Thrall muttered. Humans don't have this level of stealth technology. No, whispered the elder. They didn't, until they needed it. Urzet slammed his fists against the control panel. Activate planetary defenses. We tried, a technician whimpered. Humans already disabled our targeting systems. They inserted a polite pop-up message. What message? Urzet demanded. The technician squeaked. It says, Hi there. Sorry for the inconvenience. For the first time in his military career, Urzet considered fainting. Across the Empire, fear spread faster than flames. Civilians crowded emergency bunkers. Soldiers demanded new postings far from human contact. Psychologists issued urgent advisories warning that humans were undergoing a species-wide behavioral shift, though no one could define what that meant. The truth was simpler. Humans were remembering. And the Empire was learning what that meant. Inside the Resolute, Evelyn watched the spiraling panic with quiet, almost maternal sadness. She didn't take joy in the suffering. She didn't revel in fear. She simply understood the necessity. General, Arlo whispered, are we really going to destroy them? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she watched another Imperial planet request evacuation. Another fleet retreat. Another general beg for mercy. Finally she sighed. "We're not destroying them, Lieutenant. We're educating them." "Educating them?" Evelyn nodded. "The Empire thinks war is a show of force. Humans know war is a responsibility." Arlo exhaled shakily. "And if they don't learn?" Evelyn's smile was small, almost tender. "Then we teach again." As the words left her mouth, a final alert appeared on the tactical display. Empire High Command had requested an emergency negotiation. Arlo stared. "They want to talk?" Evelyn's eyes softened with something dangerous, something that felt like the quiet before a blade strikes. "Of course they do." "Do you think they're ready for the truth?" he asked. She stepped forward, resting her hand on the console. "No. But they're ready to scream." The hologram pulsed with the incoming Imperial summons. Every officer aboard the Resolute watched Evelyn, breath held, waiting for her command. She reached out and accepted the transmission. The screen flickered. The Empire's Emperor appeared, eyes wide, voice unsteady. "General Grant," he whispered. We need to talk." Evelyn smiled, gentle, warm, and absolutely terrifying. "Of course," she said softly. "I've been waiting for you." The Emperor's private chamber was built to humble visiting leaders, but tonight it felt unbearably small. The walls shimmered with embedded starlight, the floor pulsed faintly beneath his boots, and dozens of guards lined the perimeter with weapons drawn. None of it brought him comfort. He kept glancing toward the door, as though expecting some ancient specter to slip through the cracks. When Evelyn Grant finally entered, she did so with the same calm composure she carried everywhere. Gentle steps, soft expression, shoulders relaxed, as if the galaxy wasn't holding its breath. "Your Majesty," she greeted, voice as smooth as Riverstone. "Thank you for the invitation." Invitation was generous. Summoning was more accurate. But the Emperor seized the lifeline she offered and bowed stiffly. "General Grant, we request immediate negotiation. Your forces are overwhelming our territories. This must end." Evelyn's smile was kind, almost sympathetic. "I couldn't agree more. Peace is precious." Several guards swallowed hard. Peace, from her lips, sounded less like a promise and more like a memory someone had already stolen. The Emperor gestured to the central table. It displayed holographic maps of the Empire, every border marked, every fleet tracked, every planet glowing with status indicators. Except the indicators weren't glowing anymore. They flashed warning red. Evelyn studied them with an unreadable look. "Your defenses are collapsing faster than expected. I assumed you'd adjust quicker." "We didn't anticipate," the Emperor began, then faltered, "that humans possessed such capabilities." "We've been quiet for a long time," she said gently. "People forget what quiet means." He gripped the edge of the table. "General, name your demands. The Empire will negotiate." Evelyn placed her hands behind her back. "Before we talk, there's something you should understand." She tilted her head slightly, as though considering the softest possible way to say something devastating. "The hospital wasn't chosen by chance." The Emperor stiffened. "We told you, it was a disciplinary action against refugee trespassers." "Oh, I know why your ship fired," she replied. "I'm asking if you know why we were waiting." The question fell between them like a blade. The Saracen elder, acting as the Emperor's advisor, hesitated. "General, are you implying humans foresaw the attack?" "I'm not implying anything," she said, folding her sleeves with careful grace. "I'm telling you directly." The Emperor's voice cracked. "You evacuated the hospital?" "Hours beforehand." Evelyn's tone never sharpened, never rose. It remained soft, an unbearable softness. "There were no patients inside when your cruiser fired." The Emperor staggered back as though she'd struck him. "That's impossible. Our intelligence reported full occupancy." Evelyn shrugged lightly. "Your intelligence doesn't understand humans. When we noticed your military patterns shifting, we prepared contingency plans. Years' worth of them. But to let us fire, the Saracen elder whispered in horror. Yes, she said simply. A guard trembled violently. Why? Why allow such a deception? Her gaze settled on him with gentle pity. Because the galaxy never believes humanity when we say someone dangerous is coming. But they believe footage. And Ash. She tapped the hologram control. The image of the destroyed hospital flickered back to life. We needed the galaxy to witness what your empire had become. And we needed them to understand why we acted. The Emperor sank into his chair, hands trembling. This was a trap. It was preparation, Evelyn corrected softly. The trap came later. Almost on cue, every holographic map in the chamber shifted. Imperial fleets across 3 sectors flickered. Then disappeared. The Emperor gasped. What is this? Your ships, Evelyn said. We disabled them. All of them. He choked. Not all, she said thoughtfully. Some we left untouched so your civilians could evacuate. This kindness unsettled him more than the destruction. Evelyn continued. Your supply routes were compromised 3 days ago. Your communications, 5 hours ago. Your planetary shields, well, you already know those collapsed an hour after we arrived. At this moment, human Marines are stationed on 14 border worlds. They've already secured the capitals without casualties. Without casualties? Thrall, who had rushed in moments before, bellowed. You expect us to believe that? Yes, Evelyn said softly. Because humans don't kill unless someone forces our hand. Thrall trembled with anger. Or fear. Perhaps both. You used the hospital as bait. If your ship had chosen differently, she replied, none of this would have been necessary. She stepped closer to the Emperor, lowering her voice. This isn't vengeance. It's containment. Your empire has grown reckless. Dangerous. You fire on civilians to set examples. You threaten worlds into silence. You mistake fear for obedience. Her expression softened again, dangerously. Humans know better. We've lived that history. We promised ourselves never to repeat it. The Emperor's voice broke entirely. What now? Evelyn reached into her jacket and withdrew a slim card. She placed it on the table with the gentleness one might use when placing flowers on a grave. Terms of surrender. Written in your language and mine. His terrified eyes scanned the card. Disband the Imperial military. Publicly acknowledge the hospital attack. Pay reparations to affected colonies. Relinquish control of occupied worlds. Never threaten human children again. This is outrageous, Thrall growled. Evelyn met his fury with a polite, serene nod. You're welcome to reject it. But then we continue. And trust me, General, my people haven't even begun to show you what they're capable of. Thrall fell silent. The Emperor stared at the card, throat bobbing. If I sign this, what becomes of the Empire? It survives, Evelyn answered simply. Reshaped. Accountable. Better. And if I refuse? Evelyn gave him a sorrowful, almost motherly smile. Then my Marines stop waiting. The Emperor looked at her as one might look at a tidal wave, knowing it was too late to run. His shaking hand reached for the stylus. Slowly, painfully he signed. The chamber exhaled. Evelyn didn't cheer. Didn't smirk. She only nodded, as though acknowledging a student who had finally completed a difficult lesson. Thank you, she said quietly. The Emperor whispered. General, what are humans? Evelyn tucked the surrender card away. A species that tries very hard to be kind, she said. Please don't make us regret it. A deep tremor shook through the chamber, one final alert pinging across the walls. A holoscreen flickered on, showing a distant Imperial world broadcasting a plea for peace to every corner of the galaxy. Evelyn turned toward the exit. It's time for us to go home. The Emperor called after her. Will the galaxy ever trust humans again? She paused at the doorway, silhouetted against the glowing lights of collapsing borders and rising truces. They don't have to trust us, she said softly. They just have to remember one thing. She stepped into the corridor, leaving only her final words echoing behind. Humans never start wars. A beat of silence. We finish them.